how to stop comfort eating and not sabotage your diet. Hello, my name is Roxy from foxyroxyreviews. If you're new to the channel, we cover everything trans, whether it's features, well-being, or reviews. If you're coming back to the channel, thank you very much for stopping by. Today we're going to cover the topic of comfort eating. Now, I've made a number of attempts to lose weight in the past, and all of them have been ultimately unsuccessful as I haven't actually reached my target. And I believe that comfort eating was one of the major factors which stopped me or impeded me from reaching this goal. So that's why this particular topic I think is really salient, and especially when we're discussing things like diets. I think it's really important we actually consider this as well, because quite a lot of the time I would have a healthy diet where I might eat chocolates or some other sugary foods late in the evening, and it would kind of scupper my progress. In the UK, we actually have an increasing number of people which are overweight, and of course, as more people come out as trans, more people are looking for surgery, and with the NHS especially looking for people to be within BMI range because of a number of different factors. This is why, especially within the trans community, it is a big deal. There's a number of people I know who are looking to get surgery from the NHS but are unable to because they don't make these BMI targets. Saying that though, I don't think the trans community is the only group that could benefit from this topic, and definitely just have more general applications. Please just see this as an introduction, as there's a lot more depth behind it if you go out looking for it. Just before we kind of jump into the topic of this video, I think there's something that's very salient that's on my mind. I find that a vocal minority of people actually quite easy to judge others saying, oh no, you're really fat, you should lose weight and stuff like that, and I could just strangle them. It makes me so angry, and it almost assumes people are stupid as a result because they might not be quote unquote aware that they're FAT or anything like that. And I want to use this video to counterpoint that, to just show how wrong that is. The first thing I think I want to cover here is a lot of people comfort eat to some extent, whether that's every day or under certain events, and there's a hell of a lot of shame around it. So what I find quite a lot of time is people sidestep this whole issue, and I know a number of people who have stumbled at a weight loss objective before, and I am definitely one of those people. And I think there's a big thing about actually being honest with yourself to understand what is happening. Unlike these certain individuals which want to bully others, I'm removing the shame from comfort eating and just seeing it as a behaviour, something that I want to get rid of. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just something that's stopping me on my way to making the progress that I want to make. There is 4 recognised steps in the cycle of emotional or comfort eating. Number 1 is a trigger or emotional response. So this might be some event, or it might be a situation, and you don't deal with it very well. So your response is to run away or hide from it. And this is one of the main reasons why there can be a shame, because there is something behind that you kind of want to run away from, with the second part of the cycle being a cover-up stage. Now this can be with food or alcohol or anything that will make you feel good because you haven't dealt with that trigger in the first place. Now, for me, it was sugary foods, and quite a lot of time that can pull energy away from other things. It was very good at kind of numbing that feeling and kind of running away from something that I didn't want to deal with. And then, of course, this leads on to number 3 of having a false bliss, where you kind of create a temporary feeling of feeling better because you've hidden or you've masked that particular issue. Then this leads over then to number 4, where you have a hangover. So it's a shame response. So whether it's alcohol and you got drunk and you've got a headache the next day, or you feel you've really overeaten because you've had loads of sugar, and then it leads to a shame response. And of course, then you can see how this cycle can then just repeat and repeat and repeat. And it's something that I got trapped in for the longest time. In between these cycles, I tried to lose weight, but of course then the cycle of comfort eating will then repeat, and that was one of the key reasons why I was having difficulties. And of course then my manager saying in January we're going to start a weight loss group, and this really encouraged me to start looking at everything in a full 360 perspective to see how I can change and have a positive outcome to reach my health gain goal of 80 kilograms so I can have surgery. The first thing I actually started doing was actually having a mood diary, and this is to increase my awareness around the cycle of emotional eating, to find out what these triggers were. so I could be more aware in dealing with them in an appropriate way. Now, the first thing I think that comes to mind when you're talking about emotional eating, it is a very big cycle. And of course, with human beings, if we repeat a behavior 11 times, it becomes learnt. And of course, I want to unlearn it. So it's actually very, very common if you're trying to break emotional eating that you will fall off the rails and you will have an issue. And for me, there have been times when I have been really fighting it. The first thing I advise though is don't be afraid of failure. Just see it as a path to success. As cheesy as it sounds, it works. Even an Olympic cyclist can fall down off their bike. It doesn't mean they're not an Olympic cyclist. It just means sometimes some things go wrong. But in learning to see what's happening, that allows you then to have the awareness. Now, with that, I actually try to direct it in other ways. So rather than kind of wanting to go for a chocolate bar, because chocolate is definitely my weakness, I actually try to replace it with other things, whether it will be computer games. I love computer games. And of course, even though computer games are not going to be healthy if you're sitting down, then it does mean that you're not eating chocolate or anything else, you're focusing on something else. And the other thing is to actually look towards things that you do like to do, which are healthy for you. For example, I love playing my PSVR, and there's one game called Spark. Now, this is kind of a mix between tennis and squash, but it does keep you moving a lot because you have to stand up, move around, and you have this virtual ball that kind of bounces around and you kind of bat it back. So it just keeps you moving, and this kind of leads into my second point then. If you have an awareness of what's happening, you can actually then begin to try to address it at the source rather than just use a deflection technique, because what I talked to was effectively a deflection into something else. But it's kind of more self-care and self-awareness. So it might sound cheesy, but things like self-care is very important. Let's say, for example, your trigger was around being rejected. You could actually work on this in other ways. Maybe there's friends that you can contact which you're good friends with, and you can have a deeper relationship with them and find other ways to diminish that. Because if you can beat the trigger and stop it becoming something that leads to a cover-up, then you can actually cut it off at that source. And this kind of leads into number 3 of building a response, where you can actually cut off the circle altogether by dealing with the emotion at the source. Now, this is a little bit more tricky, but you've got to bear in mind, obviously, a lot of these things, especially with things that you don't want to deal with, is usually a fear or a dread, or there's an emotional part to it. It's the way that we think about and perceive these events, which is causing an irrational response. And this is where you can take something which is irrational and then place it into a context. And this kind of, I find, with social groups and social support. I know in the trans community there is some significant issues, and I feel that sometimes I have some hard time dealing with them. But by talking to other people, I can actually see things from other people's perspectives, and that has actually helped me to develop my own response. But of course, with all these 3 different aspects today, you do have to craft your own approach. I know for some people they use social groups, some people they may use kind of advice and forums. I know there's plenty of resources on YouTube regarding these topics, and of course not to disregard things like therapeutic work, because then that can also then start to approach and to look at these things. But I do actually come back to the beginning. I see comfort eating or emotional eating as a behavior. I don't attach an emotion to it. I just see something that I need to change. And this is why, in my personal opinion, when people are judging people for being fat, they actually are feeding and fueling this cycle, not stopping it. And that what makes me angry, sad, in equal measure. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video today. Of course, we'll have all the social media links. So if you do want to get in contact with us, please do. And of course, we both have private and public ways to get in contact. I would really appreciate it if you feel comfortable, of course, to put something into the comments if you think that could help others. And as always, if you want to keep up to date with trans features, well-being and reviews, subscribe to Foxy Roxy Reviews.